Hey guys, Jason here with Spectrum Labs, and I'm back with another episode of the Hemp Startup Journey. And this is a very quick but very interesting, very cool episode. This is with Dr. Siddappa Byrareddy. He's a professor at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and basically we talk about cannabinoids, CBD specifically, and lung inflammation due to COVID-19. So in case you want to look for his scientific article, it's titled SARS-CoV-2 Induced Respiratory Distress. Can cannabinoids be added to antiviral therapies to reduce lung inflammation? That's what we talk about during the conversation. It's very short. It's maybe 20 minutes or so after I edit it. But essentially Dr. Byrareddy talks about how CBD can impact the body positively to reduce inflammation, to reduce cytokines in the body, and just really cool stuff. We try to break it down a little bit for almost anybody to understand, so you should have no trouble trying to understand how this can affect humans positively. And he mentions in the conversation that this is not a definitive study. He's not saying that CBD will cure COVID-19, but can it directly impact the inflammation and the lung inflammation that happens because of COVID-19 infection in the body. So anyway, you can go listen to it for yourself. I'll put the links in the show notes about how you can reach out to Dr. Byrareddy, and also if you want to contribute and help him further this research, which can, if everything goes well, who knows, it could save many, many lives, then I'll leave the link to that in the show notes as well. So anyway, please listen and enjoy this conversation with Dr. Byrareddy. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining me on the Hemp Startup Journey. I really appreciate your time. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's see, I guess I have a few questions for you, but before we get started, I always like to give a little bit of context to our listeners or anybody that's watching here. And can you share, if you're, let's say you're at a party, which nowadays probably few and far between, but you introduce yourself to someone and then that person says, "Oh, doctor, what do you do?" How do you answer that?
Yeah, I'm a scientist and deal with working on a virus.
Okay.
So the virus include like any virus, you name it. Like we done have several of them, like HIV, Zika virus, and now we work on SARS-CoV-2.
Okay, so that sounds very amazing and scary at the same time. So when I was a kid, I used to always say that I wanted to be a scientist just because it seemed so cool. So didn't turn out that way, but now I'm talking to a scientist, so maybe that's the next best thing. And then so let's see, how did you what kinds of things do you focus on as a researcher? So like you mentioned HIV and some other things, like can you just
Yeah,
expand on that?
so we are at right now. I'm working at University Nebraska Medical Center. Basically, we are focused on understanding pathophysiology of viruses in general in our labs. And our long-term goals are to honestly develop a therapeutics to cure the diseases that affect the humans. That's a general what we look at. And then in more specifically, if we go in the details, basically what we do is we basically do the discovery, meaning understand the pathways, how the virus gets into the human system, what it does, and then see where it goes, and then we use a lot of bunch of young scientists working in the lab around, like they are doing a master's or Ph.D. program or postdoctoral students, and kind of we brainstorm, pick up the topic, and then think what can be done. We kind of make ingredients, a lot of things, and then assemble end of the day and see like the cooking. Wow, can we cook properly or not? And then all these ingredients to be put together and see whether that works to reduce the virus in a given cell type or in vitro system. And then once that expands and we understand, oh, that works, then we take into the in vivo system, because most of the time you have to translate, meaning whatever it works in a test tube may not work in a human body. So that's why we have to have some living organism to test that. And then we basically test if that works, and then it goes into the IRB, IND, and things like that. So that's the kind of process, and then we finally discover, and that kind of we confidence, then we know that works, and then we move into the clinic, and then probably use that in a clinical system, or what we call a space for clinical trials. And then if that pass there, then we seek FDA approval, and then go. That's the kind of typical process what we do in the lab, investigating and identifying some therapeutics to the overall goal is again to cure human diseases. And then we particularly work on viruses in general, which causes pandemics or epidemics to human beings to keep happening.
Okay. Viruses seem so just foreign to me. I'm trying to understand them more, especially before speaking with you, because I think as humans, we think of the biggest impacts are when things of physical size, like the bigger they are, the more impact they have. But then when you're talking about viruses, you have things that you can't see, right? With our human eye, and they can create such havoc like we're experiencing now for the past few months with COVID. So it must be pretty amazing to have that sort of, I don't know if this is the right term, but almost like this relationship with like microscope and looking at these things and trying to understand like why they do these things or how they behave. So, and we'll get into that here with your study. So how did you decide, okay, well, let's study cannabinoids as it relates to SARS-CoV-2? How does that go about happen?
So yeah, so we were doing some studies already, cannabis in HIV infection.
Okay.
And then we know this cannabis has a property called as antiviral, antiviral property, meaning they can be used as especially where we're interested in earlier studies. We have published several of these papers in collaboration with, again, Texas Biomed Primate Research Center, one of my colleague, Mahek Mohan. So what we've shown is that giving the low doses of cannabis, or also called as the THC, we worked in monkey models. SIV infected animals, we give low doses of this dose.
And low doses, I'm sorry to interrupt, low doses would be how much?
Yeah, low doses of THC. So again, there is I cannot tell you top of my head exactly how
Oh,
much.
no problem. But like maybe like under 10 milligrams or so,
Yeah,
or
something like that, under
okay.
10 milligrams. So usually when we do some of these studies, it's very critical to identifying the dose, because especially cannabis and things like higher the dose, they have other psycho effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it has to be optimized. It should have to be have psychoactive effects. So when we're doing that, what we found is it reduces inflammation, especially in the lung, in the gut. So that's what we found. And then when we're studying more and more, what it turns out to be, it has the capacity to reduce the inflammation in any system, especially any virus in general. And that's where we kind of put some ideas, and that's why we wrote this paper. We thought it could be useful for COVID. And then when we went and looked at the literature, there are some studies that shown in small animal models, and will be very useful to inhibit the pro-inflammatory cytokine production, what we call. When that leads to the reducing the what we saw in the COVID again, the cytokine storm. So that's where we thought, oh, this could be something useful. And then we wrote, honestly, the opinion piece. And there is no data available right now using the CBD for COVID at all. There is very recently, there was some animal model studies were done, but it's need a lot of work to done to really make that happen. So what we know is that based on our previous studies, properties of cannabis, and then we have done for other viruses, and then based on all these things, when we put together as a package, we see that this has a potential, can be used, and then also, it's very easy to give, and then it's already we know some doses, and it is the same particular doses, and then some of these CBD FDA approved. We thought this could be very easy to go right now to treat COVID. But I'll get into a moment a little bit later. And again, you have to be careful again here. CBD alone not going to cure the COVID disease. It has to be clear. So what it does is, as I said, it has a very good anti-inflammation properties. Any virus gets into the system, it start or inflammation goes high, and because of the virus infect the cell, then what we're trying to do is not cure the virus. We want to, and that inflammation leads to so many other secondary problems in general. So what we are proposing is use this as an adjunctive therapy, not direct therapy. The meaning that, so when the person got the sick, they need another antiviral. That antiviral can reduce the infection, put the virus down, not replicating and things like that, and then go with this CBD at the same time, and the particular dose, and then whatever the virus by that time caused, like say person got infected like week back, 3 days back, or so virus got infected already, right? There is already some ongoing inflammation is exists in the body. So because even though you take antiviral, for example, and then reduces the infection, but this inflammation is keep going, and once it starts, it's the even some people goes lifetime, some people like years. It all depends, again, depending on the immune system of that person. So that's where we're proposing to take care of that inflammation, whatever caused by these viruses, and which cannot be completely cured by any antiviral or even impact vaccine. So this probably can take care of that inflammation so that that secondary effects could be controlled. That's the kind of idea what we wrote here. And then that's what we think that can be go. But only thing is, as I said earlier, this is again hypothesis, and then this is the knowledge what we gained, we studied overall several years, but this has to be proven. So experiments have to be set up right now, and then so that's what we are trying to do, and then prove. And once we can at least prove, because again, the disease is different, right? So that's the whole problem here. Once we set up these experiments, and then it's a proven little bit, and then it's good to go.
So then, like you're saying, just to make sure I understand, because I poured over your article here, and not coming from a research background, making sure I understand. So you're saying this is not, the theory here is not that cannabinoids or CBD or cannabis will cure COVID. It's just that you're trying to direct the attention to the inflammation that happens in the body when COVID enters the body, and so that with cannabis in general, that you're seeing that it reduces inflammation based on some of the research that you've done related to HIV and cannabis.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I know in the article you mentioned cytokines, so I had to look that up. So that's, I guess that's an immune system protein.
Right.
Right. And what does that do in the body?
So the cytokines basically is this kind of regulate the immune system. All right.
Regulates. Okay.
When it's regulation, so if they're higher or lower, and they will have different consequences of the cytokine. So therefore, it is very important to they need to maintain the levels. When the virus infection, what happens is some of the cytokines like increases their levels very quickly, and then that should not happen. When that increases, that leads to the, as I said, secondary effects, maybe lung function, liver function, gut function. This get disturbed. So when that happens, so those get disturbed, then there will be consequences. And then what we are thinking, some of the cytokines increases, especially in the COVID, that's where we have seen what we call as the cytokine storm in the many COVID patients undergoing today. So we think that's something due to happening the virus production, and then we think the CBD can inhibit the production of those pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 6 or IL-1 alpha or beta. Some of this has a direct effect on those, and that's the kind of idea where we're thinking we can control some of those secondary effects what happen with this virus infection using the CBD as a adjunctive therapy.
Okay, and yeah, the cytokine during some of this research, I stumbled across cytokine storms,
Yeah.
which sounds like a nightmare. So apparently, some folks that have this condition, or I guess some other diseases as well, that the cytokines, they're helpful in killing off some cells that are just malfunctioning. But then sometimes, and it seems like in some cases of people that have COVID, that there's too much. I guess the cytokines go sort of haywire and start attacking the entire immune system. And that's where they call it the cytokine. Is inflammation the same thing as this cytokine attacking, or maybe you can define inflammation in the body?
No. So what happened was when the virus attacked to the body, right? So when virus got infection, there is a lot of things ongoing in the body. So one of those things, what happens was the first thing there is any foreign infection seen by the somebody is a foreign for us, right? We never exposed to that. So when that happened, the first thing is what happens was some of these chemokines, cytokines goes up because our body has to fight against the disease, whatever comes in, and then it start like fighting about our immune system or something comes in. It's like a soldier. We don't know what to do. Then we try to fight with them and then to win, and that's kind of what body does. But many times it fails. So that's what when that happens, the cytokines and chemokines it goes up when the something infection, and then so those are the issues when that chemokines and cytokine gets upregulated, and then as I said, those will have secondary consequences, and then those upregulation with the general immune regulation, and that should not happen.
Okay.
That leads to the what we are talking about. Since they get upregulated, our immune system get imbalanced. When that's imbalanced, things happening. Some of this what we call as what we have seen in generally ARDS, what we call acute respiratory syndrome. That happens in most of the patients when there is a cytokine superstorm and dysregulation happen. But what we have seen during the COVID, this is becoming increasing. What is happening than the COVID cases, and that's the issue most of the time people face. And then what we thinking, so could we reduce that using the CBD? And then when we use that CBD, that can be reduced so that we can reduce the people undergoing ARDS or cytokine storm, and so that at least because what I'm saying, it's a cascade of events, and virus infects. It start very mild, then get into system, depending on the immune system of the person, how good they are to fight against the virus, and then the next consequences. So some people can able to fight, some can't because they may have secondary other infections in their body, or they are diabetic, they are, many other complications was ongoing on. So that's why the maintaining this balance is very critical in order to not to get in there. So that's a kind of idea that inflammation is one of the things. The inflammation can happen many ways. Even stress also leads to inflammation, or excess drinking leads to inflammation, overthinking leads to inflammation. This is all connected to the brain. So that's why that's where the whole issue. So especially when this happens, already people are very stressed out with the disease and what is happening, and then top of that, it's become your body get dysregulated, and then some of these pro-inflammatory cytokines all get increases, and there will be the secondary consequence, and that leads to the cytokine storm and things like that. So that's where we're thinking probably CBD can help some of the secondary consequences of the virus. That's the idea what we wrote in this article.
Yeah, and that was I believe you mentioned something about, you referenced a trying to find it, but you were referencing oh, okay, another study about the uses of CBD with patients that were recovering from Ebola disease.
Yeah,
And
Ebola. Yeah. So yeah, right. So what happened was during the Ebola pandemic, the reason the Ebola pandemic again is the same issue like what we are going through right now. There is a lot of emotional stress. People after recovering Ebola disease is like fearness, right? Oh, he got Ebola, then he's recovering, and then lot of, it's a lot of emotion going there. So when that happen, emotional stress and things like that, and it again leads to a lot of mental and mental stress. What people are going, they're suffering from an anxiety and emotional stress in general. So it's a kind of again, it's how your brain deal with it as a situation. And so that way, where we are thinking, there are some studies, yeah, what we reference back, they also used CBD to come out of this anxiety and fear associated, something like that. So that's another idea where we're thinking, we don't know the post COVID situation, what's going to be, honestly. Huge number of people are infected in the worldwide, and then depending on where they live, what they do, what kind of this again comes with a lot of what I can call social determinants of health. I think you understand that. We wrote a beautiful article on that recently, how to deal with the social determinants of health when epidemic, something like that. So that's where, again, it's depending on the people, where they live, what occupation, whether they lost job or they lost their loved ones. So this all leads to a lot of mental stress. So that leads to the inflammation. That's we're going to see that a lot.
okay.
So that's the kind of idea where there is a place, and we reference Ebola because Ebola has done the same thing, not in the United States, but elsewhere it happened earlier. And then people been through that, and then that's where on that paper where we referred, they used CBD to deal with some of this mental stress, emotional stress, what people undergone. But the only thing is, it have to be careful, as I said, the dose they use. So then they become addicted. That's the biggest issue, what we're dealing with.
Mhm.
So that needs to be carefully thought, and then we have to know how much exact. That's why I'm still very, we're talking every day. We want to really do one of the nice piece of animal studies to evaluate exactly then what dose is required. And then once we have that answer, and then it will be easy to at least implement that in the when coming to the human diseases, and then so that the doctors or the physicians know exactly what to be prescribed, and then not more, and so that it can be controlled. Otherwise, the, as you know, some states this is legalized, and that's the fear. That people can simply buy in the counter and then eat, and then we don't want that to happen.
Yeah,
Then something else,
sure.
that's the kind of the issue. That's where we believe as a scientist, I want to be done nice systematic studies and make sure we know everything that's taken care, and then we have a experiments and data generated. Basically that data can tell us where we to go, and
Mhm.
that's the kind of idea really we thinking has to be done more than we think about, let's go give other CBD now, absolutely.
Sure.
And,
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is you're making a good point. That this is sort of starting that thread of how this could be helpful, not proven yet. Something when, and again, I don't read too many of these studies, but every once in a while, and something that is challenging sometimes in trying to understand what was used in the research was what kind of CBD product or oil was used. Was it full spectrum? Was it an isolate? Were there other cannabinoids or maybe terpenes involved?
Yeah. So a lot of those are involved. So again, what we used is regular, what is available from one of the companies we call the CBD and TH. Those are the two. But you are right. There are so many other plant extracts. They have a good medicinal properties. That's another area of research. I know some of the research in Canada is studying on that to identify what kind of plant has a better anti-inflammation properties. But this needs to be really studied. But there are some. I saw after my article, a lot of cannabis companies were calling us and kind of offering, or we have this new better ones, and this we believe these are better. Could you guys test? And then confirm. So looks like there are several of them out right now. They're probably one maybe better than what we used in earlier in our experiment. So those are all the basically works. It has to be tested, and then we identify this is the right one, and then it's a kind of idea can go.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, it sounds like a good benefit. You get to try out a bunch of CBD products and see which one's the best one for your research.
There are plenty of them are out. Honestly, I know.
Right.
That several of them are out. And then some of them are much better than some others. So that again we have to try out.
Right. Okay. And so then what's next? Like, what do you do with this stepping stone, if you will, for you guys specifically?
Yeah, so we basically we really pushing hard to generate a lot of funding right now to set up this experiment. We have ongoing studies on this macaque models are established, and we have already established TH and other diseases, and then we have also established the COVID research on macaques. We know how to infect, how to understand everything, but we need to set this up large scale of studies. So that's where we are putting our efforts, and we're writing grants to the NIH, and I think that to win those grants is very tough.
Yeah, I've heard that the grant sort of race is very challenging.
Yeah.
Is there anything that the public can do to help with that?
Yeah, public can help too. We also open to raise a philanthropy money. If you can help us, somebody interested on this, we're ready to go. Honestly, we do have everything and ready, but we need some funding to really test these things. So once tested and then can be published, and then that can go immediately, because we just worry about the post-pandemic, post-COVID era is a little bit going to be challenging to deal with, especially mental stress and mental issues with the people who are already infected. Yes, public can help.
Okay. What's the best way if somebody wants to help? Is there a link or a website?
Yeah, we have a link. They can simply deposit, and then this will be taken care by university, and then also they get tax benefits, whatever they pay. Yeah, we do have a links. The public can contribute if they want, or they can reach us out if somebody. There are different mechanisms. Our universities are very open to set this up. And then everything works very legal. Absolutely no issues.
Okay.
We get the some funding, and then so that we can quickly do these experiments, and then kind of again write it up another peer-reviewed paper, and everybody accept that, and then that can be going to the to me the clinical trials is the next thing to be also be done, at least some of this. So what I know, somebody contacted us from Israel. They are pushing very fast, and that's to do some clinical trials on the humans, some of the CBD products.
Related to COVID?
Yeah, with the COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
so
interesting.
I think some of those studies all can come at the same time. Some of the studies we do in using animal models, and then that can be go hand in hand, and then kind of use that as a yardstick, and then we make something quickly helpful to the public. That's the kind of what we believe to go.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your work, and hopefully a lot of other folks will be able to take advantage of it and continue on with that research, and for you guys as well. And then so maybe after the recording, I'll get that link from you, and we'll post it in the show notes. So if somebody wants to donate or help out in some way, they can do that themselves.
That'll be great.
Okay, great. So let's see if you want to put this out there, if anybody wants to reach out and contact you, what's the best way to do that?
You can send me out, and then probably we can go over, and then you can put it out. Not a problem.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
or I will send it to our university. We have other department. They can take a look. But usually, because these are all published studies, they don't much bother.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. So, are you okay if I post the link to your bio page in the show notes? Okay, great. I will do that if somebody wants to reach out and connect.
Yeah.
And then I know you have to run. So Dr. Byrareddy, Byrareddy. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Right. Good. I've been practicing for a couple of days. So,
sorry about that.
No. I want to make sure I honor your name. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. And so we'll talk here after the recording and just get a little bit of info to put in the show notes. And thank you for your work. Thank you for what you're doing.
No problem. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, and before you go, this is Jason from Spectrum Labs. Please be sure to visit us on the web at thespectrumlabs.com for any show notes and links discussed in the podcast. Also, remember to click the subscribe button wherever you may be listening from so you get notified when our next episode comes out. And tune in next show and have a fantastic day.